When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
Hi everyone, I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg. I'm your host of Yoga Birth Babies, and today we have a community birth story. I have noticed we have increased doing our community birth stories on the podcast because I've been getting so many comments either through Instagram or emails or just the feedback from the students in the studio that they really love hearing the stories and it feels inspiring to them. So I decided, all right, well, I have so many students that want to share their stories. Let's do it. So we have a wonderful community birth story from Mika Fox. Let me tell you a little bit about Mika. So she's 30 years old. She's a born and bred New Yorker who lives on the Upper West Side with her husband and her now 6-month-old baby boy, Nogah. She works as an account management in a tech company, and she loves to dance, hike, do yoga, and travel. And Mika's story was really wonderful. So Mika started coming to the studio pretty early, around 14 weeks. And I did a photo shoot at the studio. I think it was April or May. And she was one of our volunteers. So we have some gorgeous pictures with Mika smiling in it at 39 weeks. So she will ever be in my mind at 39 weeks pregnant on our website in these gorgeous pictures. So she's really near and dear to my heart. And so I'm excited for you to hear her story. What's really special about her story, she talks a lot about how she advocated for herself and she really trusted herself. And she said a lot of that came through her time of being on the mat, of listening to her baby, connecting to her baby. And it was just a really interesting story. And what I love is it took some twists and turns, and it was really a different story than she originally thought her birth was going to be. She had to make some quick decisions, and she had to learn to really trust the process and trust her baby, which is actually something we say on the mat all the time. I trust my body, I trust my baby, I trust the process. And part of that is not that it's going to necessarily be what you had imagined, but you trust your body, your baby, and the process to be open to how it unfolds. And Mika's story really, really embodies that. And I'm really excited for you to hear that. Now, before we get to Mika's story, I always love to give updates about what's happening at Prenatal Yoga Center. Really the best way to stay up to date on our class schedule and our workshops and our on-demand classes and our teacher training would be to check out our website, prenatalyogacenter.com, and also join our newsletter. Our newsletter is really fun. I have tips and videos and just community pictures, so much fun stuff. So you can join that. And again, everything's on the website. And I think, I almost forgot. I wanted to say thank you. We have so many people reaching out to join the podcast. Either they have an idea or they want to be a guest or share a story. And it's really helped. Again, this is about community and supporting the community and feeding the community. So thank you for all those that have given me ideas and want to be guests. So thank you. And then I do have a request for you. If you can leave a rating and review, I know it sounds silly, but it really helps people find us. And this podcast is about supporting the community. So I want our community to be as big as possible. So please leave a rating and review. All right. I think that's enough from me. We're going to take a super quick break. When we come back, please enjoy Mika's birth story. Mika, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to hear your story because I watched you through pregnancy. You're in my brain a lot because you were in our photo shoot. So I literally see your face in your red outfit with the black overalls and your smiley face like every day. And I think I'm going to be using those photos for a long time. So you will be in my brain at that point in your life forever and ever.
I'll be pregnant forever. 39 weeks pregnant.
In my brain, you will be. So it's fun because I love when I get to watch people throughout their pregnancy. And I remember you sent me an email about your birth, and then I always see you in postnatal, but I haven't really heard your story in depth. So I guess before we get into that, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Sounds good. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I listened, and I'll mention this probably later again, but I listened to many episodes on the podcast throughout my pregnancy. So this is kind of feels like full circle for me. I'm 30 years old. I live on the Upper West Side. I was kind of born and raised in New York, lived here most of my life. And before I became a mom, I have been working basically in tech for the past 8 years, mostly in account management. And now I'm still on mat leave and living with my husband and our 6-month-old baby boy.
So I'm so curious. I know so few actual born and bred New Yorkers. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Tribeca, but we lived in one of the first residential buildings that popped up there 30 years ago, I guess. And then kind of the neighborhood really transformed. But that's where I lived most of my life till I was 18.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. You must have seen so much change.
So much change. Yeah.
I moved to the city in 97. I watched the Upper West Side change, but my mom is from New York. And so we would come in and out of New York all the time to see my grandparents. And it feels like it's very different. And I remember she told me like Soho and Tribeca, nobody lived there, especially Soho, it was dangerous. And she's like, and now look at it.
Exactly.
So what an interesting, are your parents still in Tribeca?
My mom lives there half of the time. So I sometimes go down there and it's just I'm like, wow, I can't believe I grew up here. It was so different. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of nostalgic about the old way it was with one little grocery store. And we moved there actually because my parents saw a preschool there that they loved. And that's why they decided to move there when I was a baby.
Oh, I love that. Yay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's jump into a little bit about your pregnancy. So what was it? I mean, I know you definitely did yoga, but what did you do during your pregnancy to help your body and mindset feel prepared for birth?
Yeah. So I think pretty quickly in my first trimester, I started feeling exhausted. And I was running a lot before, but I quickly stopped. And I pretty much only did yoga and stretching and walking for the kind of full duration of my pregnancy. I live near Central Park, so that was really fun. I got to exercise just a lot by walking in nature as much as I could. But I think that was kind of the main thing. And then I started going to PYC 14 weeks pregnant, and then kind of stuck with that till a few days before I gave birth. So that was my main thing. And I was doing hot yoga before, so I quickly had to stop that. But the yoga really, really helped. And then in terms of mindset, I mean, I think I did a lot of reading. I'd say in the second half of the pregnancy, I was reading mostly kind of about natural birth, and I got into kind of spinning babies exercises in my third trimester, and also started swimming because I had some sciatica. So yeah, I think that was kind of the main things that were driving everything. And in terms of just other ways I was preparing myself, I was listening to a lot of episodes on your podcast, and honestly just talking to a lot of people I knew who had given birth. I found it helpful just to talk to friends and hear birth stories. I think just soaking in more knowledge made me feel more confident, which made me feel less nervous, and also felt like I had more power over what would actually happen during my labor and delivery. So I found that really helpful.
Oh, that's so exciting. I'm so glad that you were so embedded in our community.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I know you shared was 2 events that happened at week 39 and 40-week checkup. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So I'll mention just before that kind of my intention going into birth was I was hoping to have an unmedicated and natural birth. That's kind of what I was preparing for, just in terms of like making sure I was equipped with that knowledge and kind of the tools. And I know we'll talk about that later, but I also was very open-minded and knew I wouldn't be able to determine the process. And I kind of kept reminding myself that throughout pregnancy. And then, so my 39th week checkup, I actually was 80% effaced, and the baby was very low, but I had zero dilation. And so my OB was like, "Oh, this is great. You're progressing." And then I kind of told my doula after the checkup, and she was like, "Oh, the baby probably would come any day," which
can I just side note?
Yes.
That irritates me.
That was rough.
Well, because
yeah,
I've talked about this, and I'll try not to go too much on a tangent, so just tell me to shut up. But your cervix is not a crystal ball. Like, it could be really closed, and baby could be low, and you could stay that way, or your cervix can be open. Like, a vaginal exam doesn't really tell you much. So I guess it just like, it ruffled my feathers when you said the doula responded that way, because I'm like, don't set her up, because then you're like, oh, any day. Like sorry, I will try to pull it back, but it ruffles my feathers. All right,
totally.
I'll stop talking now.
And my mistake was like, I kind of told not everyone, but like everyone who asked, I was like, yeah, kind of should be any day. Like like not a great mindset to be in is when you're counting down the days. But yeah, I think I wasn't feeling any contractions. Like I had a little bit of Braxton Hicks before, but nothing major. So I kind of just waited. And then I went in for my 40-week checkup, and they did a non-stress test, which was fine. And then they did an ultrasound. And after I was done, the sonographer left the room, and we waited there for like 20 minutes. And then the doctor came in, which was a little bit unusual. Usually like we finish there and we go into like the main office after, and he gives us an update. But he actually came in and redid the ultrasound. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh gosh, something's wrong. And as he was doing that, he started asking me about my plans for the birth. And I was like, oh, well, I'm like hoping for a natural birth, and I kind of just want to wait at home and be at home as long as I can. And he was like, okay, well, how would you feel if I changed your plans? And I was like, oh. And he kind of swiveled the monitor to me and my husband and kind of pointed at what he was seeing, which was basically that you could really see like perfectly that the umbilical cord was wrapped around my baby's neck 3 times. And you could really see like the blue like streams. I don't even know what the medical term is. You could really see it clearly. And he was like, this is actually kind of rare that you can see that this clearly, but I have I can totally see it. And he basically strongly recommended that we go straight from his office to the delivery room for monitoring, and recommended a C-section right away. And I was like totally overwhelmed. I'm even getting like I'm getting the feeling now, the same feeling I had sitting in the room. It's like coming back. And I was like, okay, I think I just like need a minute. And he was like, no problem, go to my office. And I called my OB and I called my doula for second opinions, and everyone like heard that, and they were like 100% agreed, do that, go to the hospital and basically get induced. And I asked the doctor, I was like, is it possible to try for a natural birth? Like, is that still something that could happen? He was like, yeah, you could still try. And as long as we can monitor the baby, we'll let you know if we need to do an emergency C-section, but you can try. And that was kind of how everything started.
That must have been so much to digest that you were literally thought, you're like, I'm just going in for my 40-week checkup. All is good. I'm going for blah, 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 whatever after. And then you're like, oh,
I had walked through Central Park from the Upper West Side to Lenox Hill, Upper East Side. We'd walked like almost like an hour it took us. And I was in leggings and I just had my phone. Like that was us. Cause I felt great. I don't know. I felt good that day. So we were not expecting this, but I guess anything can happen.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's interesting because a nuchal cord, cord around the neck happens about 1/3 of babies that are born, but 3 times.
Yeah.
I can understand the concern, because as the baby descends, if it's compressing on the cord, that's problematic. Like one time, if it's kind of loose, like my daughter was born with one time and it was loose enough that they literally just kind of flipped her out and it was all good, but 3 times. So what was happening in your mind when you heard that?
So the first thing, honestly, that happened was me kind of saying goodbye to what I was hoping my labor would be like at home.
Okay.
Literally, like I think I had ordered so many candles and they had arrived the day before. We had like everything prepared for like what we were hoping to do at home before, just like to draw out the hours. So the first thing was like kind of saying goodbye to this like vision of what I thought was going to happen.
Because that's kind of sad.
It was sad. It was definitely sad. The first thing was the immediate reaction was like some crying with my husband. And then I was like, okay. And then he actually took my hands and he was like, Mika, we're going to have a baby today. And I was like, right, we are. And so quickly we kind of switched gears into like, okay, we're doing this. It's happening like within the next probably 48 hours. And then I think from then we kind of just, I definitely got a surge of, I guess, adrenaline, and got excited, and I was like, you know what, this is the most important thing. I've been preparing for this. The fact that I can't actually decide what the outcome's going to look like or what the process will be, but I know the outcome will be a baby, and that's what's important. And so quickly we shifted gears to that. Yeah.
Did you even get to go home and get stuff?
So immediately after that, we basically gave the doctor like thumbs up, we're going to do what you say. And a nurse immediately came, and basically I walked through like double doors into the hospital because the doctor's office is connected, and my husband took an Uber home, took our bags, which were obviously packed already, and took an Uber back. And by the time he got back, I was actually already in a gown in a private room, like they were waiting for the Pitocin, like waiting to start the induction. So it all happened really fast.
Wow. Sorry. I'm just like envisioning all this. Okay. Yes. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's pick up with the induction. All right. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So, I'm birth geeky, so I do want to ask some induction questions. So, what did they have to do for the induction? Did they do a Foley balloon? Did they do Cytotec or Cervidil? Like how from scratch did they have to go?
Yeah. So they told me that because I was a face, they didn't need everything. And you know the medical terms better than I do. So what they wanted to give me was, they basically said, started a Pitocin drip and a balloon.
Okay.
Yes. And so they started low, and ultimately I got to the max dosage, which was, I think it's 20 milliunits per minute on Pitocin, but that was across many hours. So we could talk about that. But yeah, that's basically where we started.
All right. And then what were you doing throughout that? Like, how was your mindset? Yeah. Well, give me all of it.
Yeah. So we're in the room. We updated the doula about what was happening. She was surprised it was all going so quickly. So she actually decided, even though I wasn't dilated at all, she decided to come really early. And so I think my husband and I had like 30 minutes in the room before she arrived, and we put on music. We tried to be as creative as we could. We were honestly feeling really excited. At this point, we were like, whatever happens in terms of like the process. And we're just so excited. We were dancing a bit. I think we updated like our parents. We were kind of getting like our stuff unpacked and like making the room feel comfortable. The nurses were so nice. They came in, they introduced themselves. They started the Pitocin drip. And then they inserted the balloon, which actually didn't feel painful for me. And they kind of made me scared a little bit before that. They were like, it's going to hurt, I was fine. And then they even gave me a compliment. They were like, you have really high pain tolerance. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I got this. Like, if maybe I have a high pain tolerance, great. I think I can do this. Because I think the challenge was like, I had read all these natural books that were all like, no induction, all these things are bad, bad, bad. And so in my mind, I was like, oh my God, I'm literally doing all of the things I had read not to do. And I think that was hard for me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wish I had maybe read other sources too on the other side of the spectrum to just make me feel a little bit better throughout the process. But but whatever. I knew that this was my decision and this is how I was going. So
yeah, and it's also not good or bad. It's what's necessary at the time. Like, do I think PIT is sometimes overused? Yes. But do I also think there are 100% appropriate times? Clearly. So it's unfortunate it was so black and white. Like, they're tools to be used.
Yeah.
And they can be used appropriately or not appropriately. So it's kind of like, like the doula's reaction of like any day. It's like, let's not put good or bad on it.
Totally. And so they kind of gradually increased the Pitocin every half hour to an hour. I felt contractions, but they were manageable. And actually, because of the balloon, I couldn't sit on a yoga ball. Something about that felt really painful. So I had to stand up the whole time, which was a little bit challenging. So I was on my forearms a lot, like on the bed. My husband did counter pressure, which really helped. My doula had like trained him in a bunch of things before, and I got a foot massage from her quite often, which was lovely. I think one thing I'll mention is just like, and actually I'll talk about this after probably, but I think the time like before the doula arrived, when it was just me and my husband, was really special. Like, I think there was something romantic and almost even like sexy about it. And I think if I could have prolonged that time, I think it would have been better for me in general, just because this was a long birth. And yeah, I think I just wanted to mention that when she came, it definitely changed and shifted the dynamic into a more like, felt more like medical and more like, okay, we got to get this done. And it was less about that.
Do you feel like if you, in hindsight, could have asked her like, hey, give us another hour or so? Or were you also probably not in the mindset to say that at the time?
Had I known the difference in the dynamic and the feeling, I definitely would have.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think in hindsight, there's a waiting room. Like I could have asked her to go to the waiting room for a little bit and come back.
I mean, you're so in your birthing mind. Like, that's what, and honestly, that's kind of what we want. We want you not in the thinking well mind. We want you in that birthing mind, like out of the frontal cortex. So it makes sense. Did they have a peanut ball at the hospital?
They did. I actually didn't use that until way later because lying down also didn't feel that great.
I was trying to think of like get you off your feet.
No, it was weird. The balloon was weird.
Okay.
For sure. So I think I got checked a few times and my dilation just wasn't progressing. I had contractions 2 minutes apart. They were getting stronger, more painful, kept doing kind of the same things, breath work, a lot of things that I had learned in a yoga class, which was great. Walking around. And I'd say like with the doula, the one thing that was a game changer, honestly, was she was a really good advocate for me in the room. So like the nurses were lovely, but there was only one monitor that was wireless and it was being used. And that was because of that, I couldn't walk around. I didn't have the wireless one. And she kept fighting for it. And eventually I got it because of that. And then I was able to walk around the room, which was super helpful. But anyway, yeah. So I was in the room, the 2 minutes apart contractions. Basically for this whole thing was about 14 hours. After 10 hours, they took the balloon out because it can only, I think, last for 10 hours. They wanted to put a new one in, and I said I didn't want to. And they suggested that they burst the, oh my gosh.
Amniotic sac.
The word? Yes, the amniotic sac. And I looked at my doula and she kind of was like nodded. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do basically everything at this point that I thought I wasn't going to do. And we're going for it. So they did. And there was meconium in there, which kind of implied that the baby was in distress. And I started getting a little more stressed about that. And I felt really connected to him in that moment. I was like, okay, something's going on. He's not doing well. This is just the process isn't going the way it should be for both of us. And I felt like there was an issue. And I knew that obviously the umbilical cord was wrapped, but I think that was a really big moment for me where I was like, okay, wait a second. I got to do something to get him out. that happened, and they actually wanted to refill my water like 2 hours later. I also said no to that. So they kind of kept coming to me with more things that we could be doing. And I felt like we were dancing around kind of a bigger issue of like, he's just not going to come out this way. And so at a certain point, my doula was like, listen, you've been at this for like 12 hours. You need to have, if the baby's going to come out, you need to have energy for pushing. And she actually recommended that I get an epidural because I hadn't until that point. And also the doctor said if I was going to an emergency C-section, I would, if I didn't have an epidural, I would need to get put under and my husband wouldn't be in the room, etc. So I was like, okay, let's get an epidural. And that was actually one of the worst parts of the experience for me. Something about the needle and just the process, like I really hated. For me, it just didn't feel good. But the moment I got it, I couldn't feel a thing. Mm-hmm. And I also felt really disconnected from my baby at that point because I couldn't feel anything. And we saw on the monitor that kind of contractions were, going up. And we also saw that his heart rate was starting to dip with every contraction. So we were like obsessively watching the monitor, which is just horrible. And that kind of went on for a little bit. I tried to take a nap, I think for like probably half an hour or an hour. And then I think when I woke up, I think I just realized they checked me again. I think I was dilated to like 1. And I basically told the nurses, like, can you please get a doctor? Like, I think we're dancing around an issue. We just need to get the baby out. I think I just want to like ask to go for a C-section. And they brought in the doctor. The doctor agreed with me. And in that moment, I actually felt like everyone in the room had known that I needed to get a C-section, and the doctors and nurses and everyone. And they were just like waiting for it to come out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. And that felt really, it was so weird. I was like, wait, why? No one suggested it since the doctor's office. And there was something strange about that. I don't know if you'll have thoughts about it. I think there's on the one hand, like, yes, I felt more in control, but on the other hand, maybe it didn't need to last as long as it did this way. So that's something that I still kind of think about. But anyway, in that moment, I was like, okay, let's go for a C-section. Literally within 10 minutes of me and the doctor like agreeing this is what we're doing, the nurses came in. They're like, yay, are you ready for your baby's birthday? We're going to go for a C-section. I was like, wait, right now? They're like, yeah, right now. You're first in line. It was like 9 a.m. They're like, yep, we're going. And they prepped me and they prepped my husband and they brought me into the room. I felt like I was in an episode of Grey's Anatomy. I had never had surgery before. The bright lights, everything was shiny. There was so many people in the room. I was shocked. And they were actually great. Like, I think this was honestly a really good experience for me. They were like, we just got a new sound system. What music do you want us to play? And I was like, thinking in my brain, I was like, I don't know. How do we choose what music's going to play? I asked for Fleetwood Mac. They put on Fleetwood Mac, and
girl left my heart.
Well, honestly, I was like, most of them were women, and one of them even said Taylor Swift, and I was like, not Taylor Swift. And then the anesthesiologist next to me was like this like older man, and I was like, okay, what music will get like kind of everyone happy? Because I don't want people listening to bad music when they're like cutting me open. Anyway, so yeah, and they started, and within 10 minutes of them starting the surgery, I didn't feel anything, of course. The baby came out, and I'd say like that was just shocking because I couldn't see anything. Obviously, there was this like the tarp that's covering, and you're just waiting for the baby's cry, and you hear it, and you're just like, oh my God, there was a baby in my belly, and there's a baby out. Like for me, I think I was just in a little bit of a state of shock. My husband could see everything, so he was crying and updating me about everything going on in the room, but I was just like kind of in shock. There was a nurse in the room that she was like, I'm here just to take pictures, and took pictures of everything so I could see everything after, it's great to have. And there was a pediatric nurse in there that had to check the baby immediately because of the meconium, and everything was fine, but I couldn't have the baby on me right away. So that was, it was fine, but I think in the moment I was just like, I just want to see the baby. Right. And it took it longer than I thought it would. And then I did, and it was amazing. And then they took the baby and my husband out of the room. And this was kind of the stranger part where it took like 40 minutes to close me up.
That's actually pretty normal for a C-section.
Yeah. No, I meant crazy because like I wasn't expecting this. I was like, 10 minutes and like, let me leave with the baby. And then they were like, no, because I didn't feel anything. So I kind of forgot that I was like They were like, no, you're staying. And then I was, and so then they closed me up, and after an hour after the baby came out, I breastfed. So it felt like,
that's beautiful.
It was great.
That is so amazing. So I know you used a lot of coping skills throughout labor, which you shared, like movement. And what did you find helped you the most, especially during the cesarean and the after? Because you're just laying there. Your baby and husband aren't there. Like, you're literally just laying there. Like, how did you keep your mind quiet and calm? Because we even talk about that in prenatal, that some of it's just mental, like it's in your head, like you have to find a way to be still and quiet. Like sometimes in a C-section or getting an epidural or maybe on the way to the hospital, you can't always be physical, moving and making sound. So what was happening then?
Totally. I think for the part before the C-section, I felt more comfortable, like I had prepared for this in terms of coping mechanisms because of the yoga. The breath work felt like second nature because it's what we'd been doing in class. So I think that was so helpful. And the jiggle, which was specifically something from spinning babies, was something my husband did. And that actually helped me the most throughout all of the contractions for like the 12 hours, was that. Like I asked him to do it probably hundreds of times. It felt so good. The other thing that I'd prepared for before, and this is more mental, but like affirmations, and thinking. Yeah.
We use this all the time. I love that.
This is something kind of strange. And I started doing it during my commute to work, but I was on the subway on my way to 34th Street every day, and looking around the subway and understanding that everyone I was seeing had basically been born. And thinking about how many women had gone through birth and birthed all these people in the subway car. No joke. This is like, I was thinking about this like all throughout the last few months of my pregnancy. And then I thought about that in the delivery room and when I was in labor also, like all the women that have been doing this are with me. I am now like joining a community of women that have all gone through this. And that really helped me mentally, throughout all the contractions. And also when I felt them, like before I took the epidural, every time I felt a contraction, thinking like my baby and I are working together. Like this is the first thing we're doing together. And I'm so excited to meet him. That really helped me as well. And I think with a C-section, once the baby came out, I did feel very lightheaded, which I know is normal from, I think, the anesthesia. And I actually told the anesthesiologist at one point, I told him, I was like, I feel like I'm falling or like I'm going to pass out. And he was like, it's all in your head. And because he said that to me, I was like, okay, I'm going to stop thinking about my body and what's going on and kind of like the pressure and the pulling I feel of like whatever they're doing to close me back up, and just kind of sink into the fact that my baby was born and just kind of thinking about my baby, and tried to like not think about what was going on in the room. The other thing, which I didn't mention, but was music. And obviously there was the whole element of music in the room during the C-section, which definitely helped. But we also prepared playlists for the other room we were in before. And that was amazing. My husband like DJs for fun. And a few months earlier, he played this sunset set at a festival we went to when I was 7 months pregnant. And I asked him to turn that set into something we could play in the room, basically like a playlist, and we played that. And I was just like imagining being on the beach, dancing with our friends, and that really stuck with me too. So just kind of like trying to disconnect from basically being in the hospital.
Oh, I love that's like the visualizations that we sometimes do. It's like find your happy place, and like really be there to take yourself away from what you may not want to be dealing with. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. That's great.
So I know you worked with a doula, and you've mentioned it a little bit. So how did you come to that decision? And then how did it play out?
Yeah. So I think because I was leaning towards a natural birth, I was pretty certain from the start that I wanted a doula. And I looked for kind of a natural forward doula, if that's a phrase that I can say.
Sure.
But someone who also knows like when medical intervention is necessary. That was kind of like the framework. And I interviewed 3 doulas, and the one I took was the third. I actually, maybe on one of your podcasts somewhere, I had read that like you shouldn't interview more than 3, or like you should try to keep it to 3, because I feel like they're just so, you could just keep going. And I had actually listened to one of your podcast episodes to prep me for the doula interviews, which I took very seriously. But the doula I took was super experienced, which I realized was important to me because I'd interviewed some who were less. And she had a sense of humor and made the room feel like lighter, which I really liked. And my husband is Israeli and I'm half Israeli. So I didn't know if in the moment of giving birth, I would want to speak Hebrew or English. So I was like, I kind of want someone who I could go either way. So she was half Israeli. She was Israeli, sorry, but she could speak English. So that was important to me too.
Did you suddenly start speaking Hebrew? I'm just so curious.
I actually only spoke English.
Okay. I was so curious.
I only spoke English and my husband also spoke English to me. It was like, it was strange. But I didn't know.
Yeah, you never know what's going to come out of your mouth.
Yeah. And she did our birth prep, which was amazing. And so I am really grateful that we had that because I think what my husband did in the room with me when I was in labor, like he learned from her. So that was super, super important. But ultimately, I'd say that my husband was way more helpful than my doula during my labor. So yeah, I mean, I think I said this before, like when she arrived at the hospital, I was a little bit disappointed because of like the vibe in the room we had created. I was like, shoot, I kind of wish I had this for longer. And I think there was something else that was really random, but like it was pretty long. So they ordered dinner and they ate dinner in the room while I was having contractions. And the smell, I think it was like Thai food or something, made me so sick. And I was like, oh, guys, everyone leave the room. And like everything smelled of this like food. That really upset me. So I think that's a tip if that anyone goes through that as well. But I think the moment that I decided I was going for a C-section, she was basically like, I'm going because she couldn't do anything. She left. Yeah.
Oh.
She left and she told me
sorry.
Yeah.
I am biased. I was a doula for 10 years, so people listening might hate me, but, and I'm okay. I'm okay if you hate me with this. And I'm going to say I had training from an amazing doula. Terry Richmond was my mentor, and she taught me that even if your client has a C-section, you wait in the waiting room and then you help them after. They may want help with latching. They may be sore. So things might be different. I know things change. I haven't done a birth in, I don't know, almost 10 years, but you did hire her and the birth isn't end. Like it's still a birth. I know I'm on a soapbox, but I'm sorry. Yeah. She left.
She left. Yeah. And I didn't know what the norm was because honestly, I didn't check what the protocol would be if I had a C-section. And so I was like, okay, fine, no problem. And she told me if I needed her, she would come back. But I didn't have my phone. I didn't think about it. And I actually did find myself, alone trying to like, feed my baby for the first time. And like there were no nurses available and I was trying to figure out how to do it by myself. So I would have loved to have someone there. And I did figure it out, but, it would have been nice to have the doula there.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, it would have been nice. Okay.
Yep.
We can talk later about, you can just tell me who it was later. Not publicly, but you can tell me later. Okay.
No, that's fine. And, so I think, that was my experience. She's also a lactation consultant. So, everything went well. So I actually didn't need anything after, but like I did have the option of bringing her, again to the hospital or to my apartment and she would have helped. But, I'd say overall, the prep was great, but then there were definitely things that could have gone better. And I honestly don't know if I would get a doula again. I don't know. Yeah.
Those listening, make sure you read your contract.
Yeah.
That if you have a doula, ask the doula to be there. They can wait in the waiting room, or it could be the kind of thing that you do a divide and conquer. Like, so say your husband's going to the nursery with the baby, someone's there with you. And then on the other side, someone's there in the postpartum room helping in the initial part. So just that's like a side note for anyone listening that's hiring a doula. Check your contract. Gosh, I wish I had been able to share that with you before. Okay.
It's okay.
So what did you take away from this experience about flexibility, preparation, and trust in the birth process?
Yeah, I think the way I prepared myself, that you can't determine kind of like the journey of how the birth will happen, was good, because that's exactly what happened. So I'm glad I prepared myself for that. I think you can kind of I think you can choose to go to the hospital with like zero knowledge of how things will happen, like of, all the things that they can give you in labor and delivery, and you'll still have a baby because there's obviously the medical staff. But I got a lot more out of kind of the experience because I knew about all the things that were offered to me, and I kind of felt like I was able to take control because of that. I think because there was so much going on, I would have felt like way more overwhelmed if I didn't know what Pitocin and the Foley balloon and like all those induction methods were, because they basically would have said like, okay, we're going to do this. And then I have to say like, wait, what is that? Mm-hmm. And we didn't need to do that. So I think that preparation, like I'm so happy I did that. And I really feel like my body and my baby's body was signaling to me like the issues at play. And I think that once I tuned into that, like I kind of knew what to do and like how to make the certain decisions. So I think that trust in like my body and the feelings I was feeling and what I could see from like the baby indications, it was like, okay, I can kind of connect to that and then like decide what's going to happen. But I'm also grateful that there's the medical intervention necessary to safely have my baby. I actually just realized I didn't say something I didn't mention an important part of the birth, where after they opened me up to take the baby out, the doctor basically told me that the umbilical cord was also tangled around the baby's body and leg, and there was not enough cord for the baby to go down.
You must have had a very long cord.
No idea. I wish they could have taken a picture of that. No, obviously not. But I
would have been curious after, like, once they cut the cord, unraveling it just to see how long it was.
Yeah.
That's just the geek in me.
Yeah.
But, I remember doing a birth where the cord was so short that the baby couldn't descend. Like everything was lined. They had a doctor that had an incredibly low C-section. The doctor tried everything, but every time the baby would keep going down, it would pull on the cord, which was causing such a decel. So it's crazy kind of what's out of our hands, and almost as if the baby's like, I know how I need to be born, and maybe we're not on the same page, Mama.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is fascinating. Okay. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents? We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's. Here comes 3-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that fourth ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling 4 things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
Okay, we are back. What is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents?
I think this is kind of similar to something I mentioned before, but I think my tip would be like kind of to be self-reliant, to kind of get yourself to a point where you can be self-reliant. I think even though I had a doula with me, I had my husband, my mom even came for a few hours at one point. I had the entire medical staff that was with me. I ultimately had to come to the decisions like at each point of my birth on my own. And no one dared to tell me what to do, which was frustrating sometimes, but I understand why. And I think I thought I was sharing the experience with everyone who's in the room and like the responsibility with everyone else more than I actually was. So as soon as I realized that, and I felt empowered by that, and I made a decision and everyone did as I said immediately, I think I understood all of that. And I think it's important to remember that like you have the control and the power. And of course, if you can't make the decision, it's important to have like the right people in the room to do that for you and to help. But if you do, then I think that's really important to know.
Oh, I love that. And then I actually asked this question at my last community birth story recording, and I think I'm going to ask it again. How do you think this experience has changed you as a person?
It's a good question. I think it's made me more compassionate towards myself, and made me believe in myself more. And I know that's really corny, but I really don't think I believed in myself before this. And I think that that's the main thing. And I think that that's really served me as a new mom, because the beginning of motherhood is all I know is 6 months, but you really need that compassion towards yourself. And I think that's been the biggest thing.
Do you know what that reminds me of? At the end of class, I always say, like, bowing to your true teacher, the teacher already within you. That just kind of popped in. It's like you found that teacher, and that teacher is in you. And that could be your guide for decisions during your birth, your pregnancy, if you have another, like your path as a parent. Like, you have that teacher, and maybe that teacher, this might sound corny too, but kind of came to the surface. And now you're like, I trust that teacher. I trust my inner voice.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
Oh, Mika, this was so much fun. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing. I really believe that sharing birth stories helps people feel excited and empowered and connected. Like you said, connected to all the other people that have given birth. And I really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's great. And I can't wait to keep coming to postnatal.
Yay!
Yes,
maybe I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.